Have you ever wondered what happens when an entire population accidentally stops eating a crucial nutrient? Well, think about this. What is the first essential fatty acid discovered in over 90 years? That is a massive 90-year gap in our nutritional science. And honestly, the answer might just completely change how we look at aging at a cellular level. Welcome to today's whiteboard review, where we're going to map out the data behind this totally fascinating question. In this explainer, we're diving into the science and the history of a molecule called pentactanoic acid. Now, that's a bit of a mouthful, so it's more commonly known as C15-0. We'll look at exactly where it came from, why it was overlooked for literally decades, and what the latest research is saying about its impact on our bodies. Okay, let's dive into this and look at our roadmap. We are going to cover 1, a new essential fatty acid, 2, cellular fragility syndrome explained, 3, the challenger to omega-3, 4, breaking down clinical evidence, and 5, the longevity connection. Section 1, a new essential fatty acid. To really grasp the magnitude of this 90-year gap, we first need to quickly remember what an essential fatty acid actually is. Basically, it's a nutrient our bodies desperately need to function, but we can't make it on our own. We have to get it from our diet. Historically, we've known all about omega-3 and omega-6. But now we have pentactanoic acid, or C15-0. And what's wonderfully ironic here is that the primary dietary source of this vital molecule is actually whole fat dairy, which is something many of us were told to actively avoid for decades. So how did we miss it? Well, this timeline reveals exactly how it happened. Back in 1977, widespread nutritional guidelines suddenly recommended decreasing our daily intake of all saturated fats. People actively started swapping out things like whole-fat cow's milk and butter for alternatives. And because of that massive dietary shift, population-wide C15-0 levels basically plummeted. It actually wasn't until 2015 that researchers finally linked higher C15-0 to better heart health. And then, in 2020, it officially earned the title of an essential fatty acid. Section 2, cellular fragility syndrome explained. So the crucial point is that researchers have actually coined the term cellular fragility syndrome to describe what happens during a C15-0 deficiency. A fragile cell suffers from lipid peroxidation, which honestly is essentially like your cells rusting from the inside out. This leads to dysfunctional mitochondria and a process called ferroptosis, which is really just a fancy scientific word for premature cell death. In stark contrast, strong cells with adequate C15-0 enjoy lower oxidative stress, repaired energy centers, and just vastly more robust long-term health. The science points to 3 distinct, incredibly important biological steps going on here. Step 1, C15-0 acts as a literal physical shield, strengthening cell membranes to prevent that premature breakdown. Step 2, it repairs the mitochondria, essentially revitalizing your cellular batteries. And step 3, it naturally activates key receptors, specifically PPR alpha and delta. You can think of these as master switches in your body and brain that regulate your metabolism, your immunity, your mood, and even how well you sleep at night. Section 3, the challenger to omega-3. Now, since 1929, omega-3 has been the unquestioned superstar of fatty acid supplements. We all know it. But I really want to highlight the number 36. In the source studies, this number represents the total clinically relevant cellular benefits attributed to the pure C15-0 ingredient, which is known as Fatty15. When we compare them directly side by side, the data is actually quite surprising. Omega-3 clocked in with 10 total cellular benefits, while C15-0 showed 36. Looking at the cells themselves, omega-3 safely repaired 33% of tested cell types, whereas C15-0 repaired an impressive 83%. Furthermore, the data notes that omega-3 was actually found to be toxic to 4 of the 12 cell systems at its highest dose due to molecular instability. C15-0, however, remained totally safe and stable across all concentrations. Section 4, breaking down clinical evidence. Let's move to and see how this builds from lab tests into real-world human trials. The first was a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial over at UC San Diego. Over 12 weeks, daily supplementation successfully raised C15-0 blood levels from deficient to healthy. For those who hit these healthy levels, the trial showed lowered ALT and AST enzymes, and those are key markers of liver stress, so this indicated significantly improved liver function. It also increased hemoglobin for much stronger red blood cells. Then, a second controlled trial took place in Singapore. Over another 12-week period, daily supplementation with pure C15O not only raised blood levels, but it also resulted in lower LDL cholesterol and a measurably improved gut microbiome. Now, these are two absolutely critical areas that directly impact our daily energy, our digestion, and our overall cardiovascular health. Section 5, the longevity connection. And this brilliantly illustrates where all this clinical data is pointing us. It leads to a much bigger question. How does this fatty acid tie into how long we live? Well, this data shows the target for C15O as a percentage of total fatty acids in your blood. 0.2% or lower, that's a nutritional deficiency, which is associated with accelerated aging. The normal healthy zone is somewhere between 0.2% and 0.3%. But the optimal zone for slower aging is above 0.3%. In fact, people living in the blue zone of Sardinia, a place famous for extreme human longevity, they have average C15O levels hovering right around 0.6%. This kind of paradigm shift has absolutely caught the attention of medical experts. Take prominent longevity expert Dr. Mark Hyman, for example. He states, Fatty15 acts as armor for your cells, strengthening cell membranes, repairing mitochondria, and reversing the hallmarks of aging, which is why I include it in my longevity routine. Ultimately, the research presented in these sources positions C15O as far more than just a standard daily vitamin. It's being framed as a foundational mechanism to restore long-term health. By directly addressing the structural integrity of our cells, fixing mitochondrial dysfunction, and restoring cellular signaling, it aims to literally reverse the very hallmarks of biological aging. So, we've mapped out a massive amount of data in today's 6-minute whiteboard review. We moved from a 90-year gap in nutritional science all the way down into the inner workings of our mitochondria. But based on everything we've explored in this explainer today, the most important takeaway might just be a single question you need to ask yourself. Are your cells fragile or strong? Thank you so much for joining me for this whiteboard review, and keep learning.